What's up, good people? Welcome to the Bro Coach Show. It's your boy, Mr. Y4C, aka Bro Troy, but better known as Coach TJ. And tonight is the second night of our series on the topic Health is Wealth. Now, tonight is sponsored by Bigfoot Health in Raleigh Foot and Ankle Center. Shout out to Dr. Kirk Wolfer, owner of Bigfoot Health and a podiatrist at Raleigh Foot and Ankle Center, which is located at 3801 Wake Forest Road, Suite 100 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, for those who are new to the Bro Coach Show, the Bro Coach Show is a live talk show and it's created to discuss, uncover, justify, and dismantle the issues that concern us most as brothers, as family, and as a community. And we like to give that to you raw, uncut, and real respectful. Now, our greatest desire here on the Bro Coach Show is to embrace everyone in positive, popular conversation. So no, we're not in the business of bashing, belittling, or shaming anyone, but we do believe in being comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations because that's where understanding starts. So as Grandma would say, let's chew the meat and spit out the bone. First and foremost, a little housekeeping. For all those who are on YouTube, we love and appreciate you guys. Continue to watch us. Continue to look for those notifications. But for those who are not familiar, please go to YouTube right now. Go to YM4C TV, just as it's on the screen. Hit subscribe and the notification button so you know when we go live to hear these courageous conversations. And help us build our Instagram page too, man. Go to @BroCodeShow and like that page so you can be abreast of all the great things and conversations that we got going on. So fellas, man, what's good, man? I heard somebody just got off a plane, man. What's good, JC? How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling a little tired. I won't lie to you, but this was a relaxing weekend. You know, I took a trip with my lady out to Puerto Rico. I'd never been out there, and I didn't do all of the touristy stuff. You know, I stuck to the ocean. You know, slept a lot, ate some good food, and didn't have an agenda. You know, whatever happened in the day happened, and so it was probably one of the better vacations in a while because I wasn't walking and running and doing everything possible in the span of 3 days. So I feel good, man. You know, a little darker, but you know, I feel good.
I can dig it, man. You need those moments to unplug, man. So I'm glad to hear that, bro. Kurt, what's good, man? What's good, bro, Kurt?
Man, chilling, man. He sent me a picture and I saw the ocean. A little bit jealous. I'm not gonna lie. But on a serious note, man, I've been on a mental health break, man. From detox from social media, and I post a lot. And I ain't gonna lie, man, it's been difficult not to actually post, but I'm refreshed. So I'm excited tonight about the conversation.
Yeah. Hey, man, if you could go on a detox from social media, man, we could do anything. Like, I mean, really, I could dig that, man, especially knowing, as we say, that's free marketing. Why not? So really good to hear that you bros are doing a lot of self-care, man.
Yeah. And Troy, one thing I'd add, I was wearing his You Matter material throughout the island, man. And I just to see the smile on people's faces, I got a number of individuals that say, hey, you know, thank you. You know, I got a few thank yous. You know, nothing more than that. You know, really like your shirt. And it was a simple message. You matter, and it hit home. So thank you for that, sir.
Yeah, good stuff, man. That's good stuff right there, fellas. Well, tonight, man, we get to continue this conversation on health is wealth, man. You know, last week we got a chance to talk to some great individuals that were doing great things with their body as well as serving in their purpose with the geriatric community, man. So nothing great happens alone. So let's get this party started, man. First and foremost, we have Jenni Rai. Jenni is a Los Angeles-based physical therapist who has been practicing since 2001. She completed the Academy of Lymphatic Studies certified in lymphedema therapist in a course that was in 2006 and recently became a certified edema specialist through the American Physical Therapy Association. In 2017, Jenni launched My Breastie Says, an attempt to bridge the gap between the end of breast cancer treatment and the return to normal life. Jenni continues to practice physical therapy in Santa Monica and Beverly Hills, California. And when not in the clinic, she enjoys spending time with her husband and her pup. Now, fellas, please help me welcome to the show, Miss Jenni Rai. Jenni, what's going on? How you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you. You know, you're speaking into the future over there in LA and all.
That's right. I know. But are the cars flying? What's going on?
I don't know. I don't know if we're moving that fast in just 3 hours. But I will tell you this, though. You know, for the people who are listening, Jenni, man, who is Jenni Rai at the core? What makes you you?
Yeah, great question. And gosh, it's funny. Of all the questions and things we talked about before, this is one where I'm like, dang, who am I? So thank you for like giving me a time to like for some self-reflection. But so I'm a physical therapist. I've been doing that. This is my 20-year anniversary, which is bananas. But although physical therapy is really like science-based and linear, I'm actually a super creative person. Like I'm much more of like an artist than I am kind of became a scientist. So yeah, so I'm just really enjoy the aspect of being able to help people and like take big sciencey concepts and kind of breaking them down so they're not scary.
Yeah, I love it. You know, one thing that we always resonate with, man, as servant leaders is please or supporting people, right? Helping people, right? So to hear that, man, that's really encouraging. Also, we have Mr. Dr. Naveen Narahari, excuse me. Now, he's going to correct me, but we're going to work this thing right on out. Now, Dr. Naveen has been practicing gastrology with Rex Digestive Healthcare since 2017 and with the Digestive Healthcare of Raleigh since 2005. Now, Dr. Naveen has a focus on colon cancer education, diagnosis and management, specifically as it relates to the greater Raleigh and eastern region of North Carolina. Now, with an additional focus on gastric and pancreatic cancers and advanced techniques, including endoscopic ultrasound and endoscopic retrograde pancreatography, Dr. Naveen is an advocate for Get Your Rear in Gear, Raleigh, the Colon Cancer Coalition, and the Colonoscopy Enthusiasts with the 50 Colonoscopies Under 50 organization to address colon cancer in younger individuals. Now, that was a mouthful. Now, Dr. Naveen strongly believes that we are the sum of our experiences in the way that we learn and interact. So, fellas and lady, please help me welcome to the show, Dr. Naveen. Dr. Naveen, what's going on, sir?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, brother. Always a pleasure. So, Dr. Naveen, tell us a little bit about your background. What makes you you? Who is Dr. Naveen?
You know, kind of like Jenni, I had to kind of soul search on that a little bit, you know, because it's one of those things where you're kind of doing stuff day to day and you're like, who am I? Right? What matters to me? And I think that ultimately I feel that you're very blessed and content to be doing what I'm doing first and foremost. I think that every action matters, you know, without repercussion to either a bad or a reward. I mean, the actions matter. And then ultimately, I guess I really like to look at the opportunity to learn, I guess outward learning in terms of people, cultures, where they're, you know, what they're I don't know, what they're made of, what affects them. And that I think ultimately affects all of us in terms of our inward learning as far as what makes us. So I think in a nutshell, that probably puts it together.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So we certainly appreciate you guys joining us tonight. So let's chew the meat and spit out the bone. What you got, Bro Smith?
Yeah, last week we got a chance to talk to some pretty influential individuals. One person in particular that really stuck out for me was Aaron Hairston. You know, for one, I've been doing my sit-ups and crunches just to come anywhere near this guy in terms of his physical fitness. But one of the things that he really struck out for me was just how he said 80% of our healthy lifestyle and is dictated by what we consume in terms of the fuel that we put in our body. And so I was glad that we started the conversation from that end by focusing on our physical health, because you'd be surprised just how our daily diet and exercise habits may affect or risk ourselves for cancer. Yeah, but the great news is there's things that we could do about it, you know, besides quitting smoking, staying at a healthy weight throughout life, being physically active on a regular basis, our eating pattern, and avoiding as much as we can or limiting alcohol plays a huge part. You know, the World Cancer Research Fund estimated that at least 18% of all cancers diagnosed in the U.S. are related to body fatness, physical inactivity, poor nutrition, and all of these could have been prevented. If some of the cancers that affect men the most are prostate, colorectal, lung, and skin cancers. And knowing about these cancers and what we can do to help prevent them and or find them early may help save our lives. That's why I'm excited to have the two individuals on the show today that can help us really walk through anything and everything that we may need to know to protect ourselves and the lives of our loved ones. So I want to jump into a few questions. For one, Dr. Naveen, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences and how you gained a passion for serving others as a doctor in medicine?
Absolutely. Hey, first of all, JC, I'm calling my office manager after this because you're going to be offered a job with our office. Because that was fantastic. I mean, that was just a great summary of all the important stuff right there. I think that for me, it was a journey, right? I mean, I think it's a journey for all of us. And ultimately, you tend to have experiences that kind of direct you, or you are directed towards a certain capacities, things that you like to do. And I think for me, I started off with bench science. And so I was in a genetics laboratory at the Ohio State University doing my thesis. And I realized, gosh, I'm not really talking to a whole lot of people. I'm not really learning about people. It's kind of me in this petri dish. And I'd like a little bit more in terms of social interaction to really understand what makes other people, other people. And so ultimately, I found that medicine really funneled that curiosity of what would be bench science, and then allowed me to really get into what affects other people. And it sounds cliche, but I mean, I guess you could roundabout say you want to help other people, but at the same point, you got to really kind of be an open book a little bit and understand other people before you can help them. And I think that ultimately you can't come at it like a train and just say it's my way or the highway. You really got to get a chance to understand other people before you can help them. So medicine for me has been that that culmination of that journey, where I was able to kind of learn through the different clinics that I was in. Free clinic in Columbus, Ohio was fantastic. That was one of the best experiences that I've had in terms of really not only getting to know what would be academic medicine, but just getting to know real medicine as it is out in the community, especially for those that in many ways can't really access what would otherwise be typical, medicine.
Now, we may get into some of the benefits of how to access medicine and really learn more about the individuals through screenings and things a little later, but I want to turn the attention over to Jenny real quick as well. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
And what started you on the journey of healing the body, and what exactly is a lymphedema therapist?
That's an excellent question. So I became a physical therapist, honestly, because my dad is one. And so he did it. I grew up with it and just kind of dove into it for studying for college. Although, as I mentioned earlier, like science kind of wasn't my thing, but it eventually became my thing. And I really love, similar to Dr. Naveen, like just getting to know people and then helping them reach their potential. So physical therapy is a great fit for that. And then to answer your question about lymphedema, so the lymphatic system is part of our body that's almost like the sewer system of our body. It gets rid of a lot of the junk, dead cell bits. It's part of our immune system. So sometimes, like when everything's working well, we're not really even aware we have a lymphatic system. The only time we kind of really think about it is if you're getting sick and you're like, oh, my glands hurt. And that's actually lymph nodes in your lymphatic system. And they detected a virus or a bacteria, something came in, they detected it, and they start kind of firing and get the rest of the immune system all revved up to go. Oftentimes, if you have cancer, as part of the diagnostic portion of treatment, they remove lymph nodes that are close to where the original tumor is. And the reason they remove them is because that could indicate that the cancer has left the tumor and it's spread to the lymph node. So it takes it out to see if it spread at all. This happens a lot in breast cancer, in the armpit. In colon cancer, sometimes it can be more in the gut. As a result, by taking them out or disrupting them, for some people, it messes up the lymphatic system and then swelling can occur. So for breast cancer, you can see that in the arm. For other types of cancers, it might be in the leg, and the person ends up with a really swollen limb. So as a lymphedema therapist, I help get the swelling out of the arm or the leg, get the limb back as small as possible and help them manage that. But yeah, it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Western medicine. Like in Europe, it's much more just routine, but for whatever reason, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure Dr. Naveen, you didn't get a lot of time in medical school, probably about like how to treat lymphedema, right? You know, that's
no, it certainly, that's a great point again, because I think that ultimately the connections between the different systems in the body are integral to any sort of therapy. So, you know, physical therapy, especially as it relates to cancer care, is huge. In fact, in multidisciplinary clinics, you're going to have physical therapy, occupational therapy, in addition to all of the other medical specialties, because it's only then that you kind of address, oh, by the way, yeah, we took out the cancer, or else you say this cancer is located here, but by the way, the person's not functional enough to obtain therapies because they have this issue with a swollen limb or other things. And from the GI standpoint, just to touch on what Jenny said, I can actually see lymphangiectasia in the small bowel, which actually precludes people getting adequate nutrition, because if your lymph system in some capacity has basically infiltrated the small villi of the small bowel, then you're not going to have the opportunity to take in the nutrients that you need, and these folks actually can do quite poorly. So again, Jenny, right on point. I think that sort of joint approach between the different specialties is really important, especially as it relates to cancer care.
Yes, I wish it happened more, honestly.
So, Dr. Naveen, Naveen, let's talk preventative measures, because it's something about going to a doctor, you know, way before something's wrong versus when I have a problem. Can you can you educate us on some approaches, especially fighting cancer, especially when we talk about the colon and GI tract?
Absolutely. I think that ultimately that's near and dear to my heart, because if you think about it, there's some stats here that are really important. Number one is with colon cancer, if you look at the American Cancer Society, you're looking at top 3 cancer as it relates to usually lung being number 1, then either prostate or breast. Actually, breast is number 1 for women. And then you have colon cancer as 3 for either males or females. And so basically, you're talking about an estimated 150,000 people per annum that will be diagnosed with colon cancer, and you're talking about 50,000 deaths. And so ultimately, the thing that's really important to consider is that there are very few cancers that potentially have the ability to catch the cancer or the pre-cancer before it becomes cancer. And I think that's really important. I know that we talk about mammographies, prostate cancer screening, but particularly with colon cancer and also with skin cancers, you're talking about an examination where you can go annually to a dermatologist. You can go to a gastroenterologist, hopefully every 10 years if you don't have any polyps, but ultimately you're looking for a pre-cancer in the form of a polyp. And this polyp is a dysregulated growth in the colon. It can look like a mushroom. It can look like a small little disc. It can be flat. And basically these flat polyps are the ones that we're most concerned about, because they're the ones that are sneaky. They are harder to be seen. And ultimately, these are the ones that end up becoming colon cancer because they behave more aggressively. And so the idea of preventive care in colon cancer in particular involves appropriate screening and surveillance for polyps once you have them. There has been so much written about this, and ultimately, the idea is that you have the American Cancer Society, the American College of Gastroenterology, and the U.S. Services Preventive Task Force that have come out with such good data as it relates to our ability to diagnose these polyps and to decrease the curve. And as we have proven, there was an article that came out within the last 10 years that the colon cancer rates in this country specifically has been going down overall, although the topic of the show, obviously, we're going to talk about disparities in population as well as what we're seeing in the younger population. But overall, since we started colonoscopies. Now, as far as other GI cancers, they're a little bit harder, but certainly we're talking about really addressing symptoms in those cases and getting to see your physician annually for your physical checkup, trying to comment on alarm signs. We always talk about alarm signs. And this could be in the GI tract, that which is nausea, vomiting, inadvertent weight loss when you're not trying, and inability to eat or early satiety, getting full early. And then, of course, on the biggest alarm sign that we always talk about, we see a lot of folks, is just rectal bleeding or blood in the stool, because that could be a tip-off of problems that are in the intestinal tract. And just to kind of give just as the skin is a huge surface area of your body, the GI tract, if you take a look at from the esophagus, or actually from the mouth down to the anus, you're talking about a huge area. The esophagus to the small bowel is about 3 feet right there, 3 feet in the colon, and then you have 30 feet of small bowel. So it's really a long tract. And then when you take a look at the small villi, small little blades of grass that are located in the small bowel that individually allow for nutrition to be taken in, you can expand that surface area by 1,000-fold. So I think that we're pretty darn lucky that we're able to address colon and upper GI disease as well as we can because of the surface area that we have. But it also involves, I think, a lot of outreach and education to let people know what they should look out for so they can talk to their physicians about it.
Okay. So in regards to preventative measures, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on everybody, from people sitting around too much and getting fat to where I want to take my question, where I'm curious, what impact has elective procedures being put on hold had in regards to individuals taking advantage of some of these screenings throughout the last couple of years? Have you seen a dramatic decrease in folks coming for screenings as a result of hospitals being overwhelmed by everything else that's happening?
JC, that's a great question. I think that everybody was on their heels a little bit. And I think, Jenny, this probably affected your practice too. But, the idea that, stay away, stay home, obviously it was done under the pretense of trying to protect the public. But I think that there were alarm bells within the context of our societies, because there were people that really needed GI care that just weren't coming in because of fear. And I understand. I mean, there's no question about it. So, back in May of last year, I remember April, May, we actually closed all elective procedures for, I think, nearly 4 weeks. And then after that, you had this bottleneck effect where you had to triage patients to determine which ones really needed to come in, because you had lower numbers of available appointments, et cetera, even through endoscopies and colonoscopies. And the concern that we all had was that there would be somebody that falls through the crack in terms of the, a colon cancer that is diagnosed late as opposed to early, or, something that turns into colon cancer that otherwise could have been prevented. I think that was just the status of how last year was. But what we've seen since then is that a lot of our what we call recall colonoscopies, those that need repeat procedures, they've called in, they've come back. Those that are in the with the knowledge that they've had polyps, et cetera, they've been really good about coming back. I think that for the others, it'll take a little bit of time. I think the vaccine rollout has been huge, JC, in terms of getting people back in because they're comfortable. That has changed the dynamic in at least the patients that I've seen. And Jenny, I would think that you probably see the same.
I have a question for you. I recently had my physical, and I was told by my primary care that the age for the first colonoscopy is now 45. Is that true? It's not 50 anymore?
Well, it's trending that way. So basically, Asma Shawkat, I have to say her name because I trained with her at Emory University, and she is actually the lead author in an article that came out just this March or April. So really hot off the presses. And ultimately, the American Cancer Society has been kind of upfront, and they've said, we need to start screening at age 45 because the current numbers have shown, and it's probably a good time to say this, the current numbers have shown a 1% increase in the age 50 to 64 group in terms of colon cancer, as well as an alarming rate of increase with younger than 50, so the 40 to 50 range. And in particular, African Americans have had a 20% increased incidence of colon cancer compared to Caucasians, 50% more than Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And on top of that, the concern is that mortality at any given stage of colon cancer, particularly in African Americans, is nearly 40% greater than Caucasians. And in African American males, it's 47%. So we're talking about a pretty wide disparity in terms of both incidence of colon cancer as well as mortality in colon cancer for something that can be prevented. So this is, I guess the thought is that we're looking at right now 45 as the age to start, particularly in African Americans, as dictated by the ACS and the American College of Gastroenterology. I'm pretty sure that the other societies will catch up, but that's not the recommendation currently for Caucasians and other ethnicities. Interestingly, this literature has been supported by not only the American Cancer Society, but also even large organizations like Kaiser Permanente, who've done their own research and found that they have essentially found the same rate of polyposis in African Americans at younger ages as they would in Caucasians at older ages. And actually, going back to my days at Emory, Grady Memorial Hospital down in Atlanta, one of my colleagues, Dr. Mohammed Ruby, did research on polyps and in particular African Americans showing up at earlier ages, especially in the right colon where it's harder to get. So I think that the number that you stated, Jenny, is going to happen. It's just a matter of the societies catching up to what we are seeing.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Well, Jenny, I'm curious, as an advocate for healing and personal transformation of people, how does your work tie into the battle, to those that are battling cancer and really fighting through that treatment? You hit on earlier when we were talking about the lymphatic system, but tell us more about that and what joy that brings you.
Yeah. Cancer treatment itself can be brutal, whether it's chemo or even just recovering from surgery, that really can knock a person out. And I work a lot with breast cancer, but I think you can make a lot of carryovers for other types of cancer as well. But the treatment itself can leave you feeling pretty lousy. And with breast cancer, there are really a lot higher success rates as far as getting rid of the tumor and having people like longevity. People are living much, much longer with cancers. But unfortunately for the cancer patient, sometimes it's like, all right, your tumor's gone. Good luck, and they leave and are kind of like, what just happened? Like, I just went through 8 months of radiation treatment, taking these medicines that make me feel horrible. I can't trust anything my body is telling me. This hurts. Does that mean the cancer's back? There's just it's been such an ordeal. So I think physical therapy is kind of great at this. As far as a modality to help, because the example I use often is if someone had a stroke, a stroke is a blood clot going up to the brain, and the brain loses oxygen. We bring those people to the hospital, we treat the clot, but it would be like saying, okay, your clot's gone, good luck. And meanwhile, half your body doesn't work, you can't speak, but we have all of these really great protocols in place. So you go to the hospital, they treat your clot, and then you get hooked up with someone to help you walk, or there's a social worker making sure there's a ramp in your house, getting all these things in place so you can then continue to thrive. And with the cancer treatment, those pieces aren't automatically part of all the puzzle. They're starting to, but so anyway, so as physical therapists, we're good at that rehab part of it. So we can help with the fatigue, with just general weakness. Sometimes chemo gives people neuropathy, which means you can't really feel your hands and your feet. So that can make it hard to button a shirt, or it might make your balance kind of lousy. So we can help people with that as well. Another component, and this is a little bit of a soapbox for me, is we as a society know how important exercise is. And I'm so glad you guys last week, it sounds like you talked about that. But it makes me kind of nuts when doctors just say, you should probably exercise, because it's not easy. It is not easy to just pick up exercise, particularly if you've never been an athlete, or maybe you were an athlete, but now you're not coming in at the best shape of your life. And how do you begin that? So a physical therapist is a great place to start. learning that sort of thing. And I've started doing, I'm going to self-plug for a minute, but I have a free exercise class on Tuesdays over Zoom for people who like have been really sedentary during COVID, you know, and are maybe not appropriate to like just take that Peloton class, or like that might be like a little bit too hard to start. So, you know, it's a great way to kind of just get moving again.
Well, Dr. Naveen, he had headlined how the vaccines are making people feel more comfortable towards getting screenings, and you've also talked a little bit in regards to the treatments. I'm curious, is it possible that people that are treated for cancers or may have a weaker response to the vaccine? Now, if this is outside of your bounds, please let me know, but I'm curious, you know, just what the impact is of all of these treatments on and whether or not it's making them more at risk for having a weaker response to the vaccine.
That's a great question, JC. I think that ultimately, you know, we don't have a great fund of knowledge there. And you know, as you remember, all these vaccinations under emergency use authorization right now, right? So the FDA still has to meet and kind of go through the data that they have, you know, post analysis, I guess, and kind of see what, you know, how these different groups kind of separate out. But ultimately, I think that there is some truth to say that, you know, an immune system that is weakened for various reasons, and this could be due to being on an immunosuppressive medication. Like I have patients with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Jenni, you work with a lot of those patients as well, I'm sure. And then, you know, you have post cancer therapy patients, et cetera. This is a big shock to the system, clearly, right? And so I think the idea is that we would expect to some capacity that the vaccinations may not reach the same percentage of efficacy in those patients. And I think that's a guess, it's a conjecture. It's not based in fact, but ultimately that makes sense. And so, but does that mean that you don't get the vaccination? That's not what I'm saying at all, because I think that even if you do get any conferred immunity at all, even if it means it keeps you out of the hospital, right? Keeps you off oxygen, that's huge. And I think that that's where we're trying to head with all of this. And especially with trying to address vaccine hesitancy, especially in different, you know, populations, you know, there is fear, not only with COVID-19 itself, but also with the idea of this vaccination being out there. And I think that it's up to all providers, you know, whether it's, you know, Jenni out there in PT, or whether it's myself, to be able to, you know, kind of discuss this openly and without judgment, actually, with our patients, because I mean, everybody's coming from their own experience, right? And so you kind of have to put that into that perspective. But to answer your question, yes, I think that you would probably have to be concerned about that, and you would talk to your patients about that. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get the vaccination.
Good stuff. So if you're just checking in, we're talking here at the Bro Coach Show about health is wealth. We have Dr. Naveen and Jenni Rai. We want to take a pause for the cause for a real quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with this conversation about health is wealth. So we're back here on the Bro Coach Show talking with Dr. Naveen and Jenni Rai about the topic health is wealth, and more specifically discussing cancer of the colon and GI tract, and how do you come back from such? What are the things that you go through your progressive change? What are some proactive ways and some preventative ways? So if you have any questions or comments for our guests, we encourage you to drop them in the comment section now. So Dr. Naveen, you have dedicated close to 20 years towards the study and advancement of medical care for those that are fighting colon cancer. Talk to us about how medical institutions, insurance companies, and corporations are starting to really address those health inequities in the community. First
of all, thanks for making me feel really old, man. I appreciate it. 20 years, that's a long time. But no, it's all good. I think that, you know, I think that there are inflection points in medicine, right? I mean, Katie Kirk had her colonoscopy on national television in 2001. That changed the paradigm of what we would do for colon cancer evaluation. And the inflection point at this point is really about how do you address racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare? It's huge. And it's getting to the core of medicine, to the point where we are discussing, this is a little bit of an offshoot, but even discussing what it means to calculate your kidney function based on your race, whether that is something that is actually a good thing to do, or if it actually promotes inequities just by that number itself. I mean, we're getting pretty deep in terms of how we look at these things from the standpoint of GI cancers, though. I think that as institutions are trying to realize just what their missions are, they're having to face the idea of disparities. And I mentioned Kaiser Permanente before in California. They're kind of a bellwether for a lot of things, just being the large institution that they are. And so they've obviously advocated for increased education, screening for African Americans at age 45. The UNC Rex healthcare system, they have a mission statement that pretty much focuses on racial and ethnic disparities in healthcare. And it starts with the idea of understanding about educating ourselves about that, and how every interaction may influence the judgments that we make in terms of the care that we deliver. And then there are corporations such as Boston Scientific. There's a good friend of mine, Jonathan Williams, that has told me about a program called Close the Gap. And right now, this in particular is related to cardiovascular diseases, in which, again, very disproportionate number of cardiovascular events in African Americans in particular. But ultimately, Close the Gap gets institutional funds to communities in various ways, whether it be education or with just with the healthcare delivery systems. And there's actually, I guess I was looking this up when we were talking, and there's something called Black Health Matters. And this in particular is a virtual conference that's taking place with the Close the Gap funding to be able to promote that sort of education. I think that you're going to see this ripple effect across the country. And I think that these are going to be community driven in terms of how healthcare dollars are spent and where they're put. And it's also going to be internal within the healthcare system to see how we acknowledge these disparities and how we address them.
I'm jumping in. Can we talk about what are some of the barriers? What's going on? Why is there such a disparity?
So, I think if you throw that chart up there about the different curves right there, you're talking, if you take a look at those numbers, you see that there is a decline, an overall trend to decrease mortality. And this is after 2001 when screening was taking place. But you still have that divergence between those two curves. And I guess, what I would say is that 19% is thought to be based on access to screening. So access is a huge issue, right? I mean, here we are in central North Carolina, right? You have Wake County, you have, I'm sorry, Jenny, we're North Carolina here, but and so we have Charlotte and Raleigh, two of the bigger cities, and we have endoscopy centers, healthcare systems, et cetera. But you get out to Eastern Carolina, you don't have those things. You don't have that access. And even if you do have that access, or if somebody's diagnosed, well, then where do they go? How do they get their treatment? That's why I think that ultimately you can say that there's a problem to access, but then there is, I think I've seen another 36% that has to do with other factors, socioeconomic factors, and that have nothing to do with access alone. So the problem is pretty big. I was on a committee just for a little bit, but this is the idea of we would get 80% of North Carolina screened by 2020, right? We're 2021, we're at 72%. And so there are issues that we're going to have to contend with. And I remember one of the hangups was, well, you've diagnosed colon cancer, then what? What system is in place? You can't just diagnose somebody and not treat them. You have to have a system in place for the whole thing. So ultimately, I think that it has to be something that's a little bit more comprehensive in terms of infrastructure to make sure that we have the capacity to take care of everybody in whatever state you're in, right? But I think it starts with education, and I think that there is perhaps some fear of the healthcare system in populations. I think that I think there are access problems, but we're trying to be able to bridge the gap, so to speak.
I could tell you one of my angst comes with the thought of how invasive some of the procedures or screenings are. Dr. Naveen, I don't know if you could hold up your hands, but is there a limit to like the glove size for individuals that are doing some of these screenings? Like, is that something that they screen you out if your hands are bigger than a size 8?
Right. You know, I look back, you know, luckily that's not the case because there's some really good people out there. But ultimately, here's the thing. So
not helping, Dr. Naveen, not helping.
So the scope size is all the same. How about that? All right. So here's the thing. So I harken back to, I don't know if you guys ever watched My Wife and Kids, right? Damon Wayans. But ultimately, there's a great episode. I don't know what it's beginning, but he's getting his colonoscopy. He's had a hard time getting in. And so basically he finally gets into the room. You've got the nurse. Of course, she gets that glove on. It's kind of snaps in place, and that, you know, sends shudders through him. And then he says, well, you know, has a doctor done these before? And she goes, oh, he's the Michael Jordan of colonoscopies. He can get it in from across the room, right? And then ultimately he asks what kind of medications the doctor uses, and he goes, no. She goes, no. Dr. Rawls only uses one type of medication, and Lou Rawls is on the show, right? So the disco ball drops, the lights go down, and he starts singing, and it is one of the funniest episodes ever. But ultimately, people are really, I guess, concerned about what it means to get a colonoscopy. And
but it's not scary though. I've actually had one, and like, it's kind of delightful. I mean, because they put you in a bed with a warm blanket, and then they say like, roll onto your side. I sleep on my side anyways. They give you medicine, so you like kind of fall asleep. You wake up, it's over. You have no idea the size of the hand.
So Jenny, you're absolutely right. So the idea, I think the procedure itself is a sedated procedure. You're comfortable. Yes, you get a warm blanket. We love those warm blankets. And I think that we are trying to reassure people it's not painful. That's the first thing. Number two is it's not embarrassing. I think that there's an embarrassment factor here too, but ultimately it's none of those things. It's really a medical procedure that's done in a very efficient manner. We get the job done without pain or discomfort to the patient after they're done. And I always kind of talk about it as a ride in Disney, because I mean, it takes forever, the preparation. You know, I understand, like, I don't make friends giving people that prep to drink the night before, right? I mean, they come in the next morning, you know, and some people are hangry and, you know, stuff like that. And I totally get it. But they're unequivocally comfortable after the procedure, and they're like, oh, that's it? You're done already? I thought I hadn't gone in already. And so I think it certainly makes a difference as far as experience. And testimonials, Jenny, you just kind of sharing that with others. And I actually ask my patients to be colonoscopy advocates, right? I mean, just to kind of share their stories, because ultimately that's the only way that you dispel either myths or you dispel other anxieties that may be around it.
Here in Los Angeles, the whole prep, you know, where you have to drink and clean your inside out. It's just like a cleanse, you know. You lose that extra weight. So there you go, win-win.
So Jenny, I love how you're romancing getting the cleanse, right? So
good times.
Gears a little bit. The humor was great, JC. Thank you for that. I feel much better. But let's talk about 2017 and you launching My Bestie Says, an attempt to bridge the gap between patients and the end of breast cancer treatment and return to normal life, which you've already spoken about. Can you tell us kind of what your why was and how important that is for the people you serve?
Yeah, and kind of, I think in a way, when Dr. Naveen was talking about access, I was kind of thinking about this question, or in My Bestie Says, where there just isn't a system in place to help address a lot of the issues that remain after cancer treatment. So it leaves people kind of like, I don't know what to do. And when I'm clinically with women who have had breast cancer, I kept hearing a lot of the same questions, and there wasn't really a clear place to send people to get the answers. So I started this website that just kind of take the questions I receive, and then if I don't know the answer, I can find an expert who does know the answer, and then I just blog post about it, or you know, on Instagram or something like that. My dream is that rehab is just a part of all cancer treatments. You know, that it's not only limited to big cities or big hospitals, but that kind of anyone can receive the care. And until then, I'm just doing what I can to like get the info out there to help make that transition a little bit easier, and to have women feel like, okay, there's other people who are feeling the way I'm feeling, and someone cares, and there's some answers out there.
So thank you for that. When we talk about the work that you're doing, and this is all about information. How do you get the information so that people will feel more comfortable coming into you? Because I think a lot of it is about being comfortable before we go into the doctor.
I love that question. I try just to, whenever I talk to people, like even in this medium, like just trying to take away the medical words, and just normalizing. I mean, in my clinic where I work, like we talk about dry vaginas all the time, you know, and like things and just by kind of like mentioning it and, you know, normalizing, and it's fine. Like same in our clinic, we also work with a lot of men who have prostate cancer and then have issues with erections or urinary incontinence. And I think just being able to talk about it matter of fact, and like, you know, it's totally cool. Like, of course, this is a concern of yours, and of course, it's a struggle, and just kind of going at it that way. So sometimes, sort of like beating the person to the punch and asking in a non-threatening or weird way I think can help people feel more comfortable. And just like, oh yeah, okay, we can talk about this. First time dry vaginas was mentioned on the show, huh?
You'd be surprised. Dry vaginas, yes, but let me move on from that. Dr. Naveen, you're a colonoscopy enthusiast with the 50 colonoscopies that under 50 organization to address colon cancer in younger individuals. I am, well, clearly cancer is not age biased and can affect any of us, but from your experience, what do the studies say about the determining factors in cancer in young adults, and what demographic of people it affects most?
So, you know, I think that ultimately there's that, I think there's a picture of Chadwick Boseman, and this is something that kind of hit, I think, us pretty hard, partly because he's just so young, right? And ultimately this kind of shed some light into the concerns that we've had for a little bit of time now with regards to colon cancer, particularly at younger ages. And we're seeing a pretty significant uptick in terms of cancer diagnoses, and also just polyposis in individuals that are younger than 50. So as Jenny asked before, you know, is it age 45? Well, it probably should be all across the board, but definitely for African Americans at this point. And so the question is, well, do we need to be concerned earlier than that? I don't think that the societies are necessarily going to go to that, but this is where the educational part of it comes in. I would say that if I were to, you know, just take 2 minutes here, it would be to say that all average risk, in other words, no family history of colon polyps, no family history of colon cancer, no symptoms, all people should start colonoscopies at age 50. Now, that is seconded by saying that if you have a family history of colon cancer, a family history of colon polyps, and any first degree relative, then your colonoscopy starts at age 40, okay? So 10 years younger than the incident age of the polyp or the colon cancer. So for example, if your parent had colon polyps at age 48, you should actually start at age 38 in that context. And you can clarify this by going to any of the American Cancer Society websites, the American College of Gastroenterology. You can certainly look this up. But I would also say that, you know, I'm recommending to all African Americans to start at age 45, regardless whether there's a family history or not. And this is due primarily to what we've discussed this before, which is just the increased uptick in terms of those cancers at that age. And going back to what Jenny said, I think it's really important. I think, you know, obesity is an all-cause mortality. are all cause for both incidence and mortality in terms of cancers. There's also a statistic that says that you are 78% more likely to be hospitalized, and I'm not necessarily sure what the mortality rate is, but with COVID-19 if you're obese. And so the idea of physical wellness and health and in just dietary is huge. And I think that ultimately, we're doing really well in terms of treatment modalities and strategies, but gosh, I think that this inflection point has to include preventive care in a wholehearted way. And, the idea is that it costs a whole lot more to treat than to prevent it in the first place. It's a lot of lost time, a lot of social stress. If you think about the financial stressors on families as a consequence of a cancer diagnosis in particular, and any sort of interaction with the medical system, I think that we have to focus on prevention in this country. Otherwise, it's just going to be a real mess going forward. So, thanks to Jenny and all those that do what they do, because I think that ultimately that becomes very, very important going forward.
Indeed. So if you're just checking in, we are talking with Dr. Naveen as well as Jenni Rai about health is wealth, more specifically about cancers of the body. How do we prevent? How do we be proactive? And how do we continue to progress to move forward? So, Dr. Naveen, now, I know you're doing great things in medicine, but we're not going to sit here on this show, on the Bro Code show at that, and not let the people know that you are a rock star. All right. So Dr. Naveen,
loosely worded,
you play guitar with a band called Q6. Yes. Dr. Naveen is a lover of medicine and music. He is a Renaissance man. So I'm curious, Dr. Naveen, man, tell us more about your love for music and, man, who's in the band with you?
Right there up front, that red jacket, my friend, is someone that we both know and love. That's Dr. Kirk Wolfler.
Yeah.
And so he and I had actually gotten together. Our kids went to Montessori, and there was a benefit that we did, and the part of that was to actually get up on stage, quote unquote, and do something, and sing something or play something. And I happened to do a Beatles tune, and he ended up doing Tommy Two-Tone, I think, or something like that. So ultimately, we got together and we said, this is kind of fun. We should probably do something like this, right? And so the next thing you know, he had a friend who was an internist in town, and then I had a friend who was a spine surgeon in town. And then we found the chair of the botany department at NC State, and so Q6 was born. But the name is kind of funny because I'll tell you, Q6 sounds really weird, right? But in medical speak, it's kind of like every 6 something, right? It could be minutes, hours. So for us, we were like, listen, we're not going to play but every 6 months. So we're just going to call ourselves Q6. But, music's a big deal because I think it bridges so many things. I love music because it is an exploration without leaving your home. I mean, if you talk about, I grew up with classic Indian music too, right? So, my parents instilled the love of music with what I knew. And then, of course, I think I was born a decade too late because I love 70s and 80s, classic rock, that sort of thing. But I'm really, really interested to learn from my kids now. I got 2 girls, 11 and 13, and boy, I'm having to learn a lot, listening to what they're listening to, and just to hear the evolution. But it's really about to me, it's a message, right? And what is the direction of thought? What is causing angst? What is causing, what are they good with? And I think that music for me really kind of reflects upon that. It's not so, it doesn't have to be so disciplined as perhaps what we kind of envisioned growing up, whether it's classical music or whatnot, but it's really a form of expression and I love it.
Love it. We all need these outlets or hobbies. In summary, quality of life. I think that's what we're all looking for, no matter where you're from and where you live. And hearing that there are steps to be preventative when it comes to cancer, whether we talk about healthy eating, whether we talk about being more active, sleep, getting out in nature, and all these things. It's really great to hear both of you. Dr. Naveen, we want to thank you for being on our show and your expertise. Jenny, thank you for the physical therapist and the talk on that. And just knowing that there are people out there like you who have the information and are also making it easier for people to have access. People like us three in the Black community, going to the doctor is not always a thing. It's just not, for all different reasons. So we want to thank you for being a part of the Bro Code Show tonight, and keep doing what you're doing.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Naveen Narahari, as well as Jenni Rai. So join us next week as we continue this conversation on health is wealth. Now, joining us next Sunday, we'll chop it up with rock star, two-time breast cancer survivor, now thriver, the wonderful Jennifer Lee Snowden. We'll also have my brother from another mother and colon cancer thriver, the man, the myth, the legend, Randall E. Toby. So join us next Sunday, May 16th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the Bro Code Show. Make sure you go ahead and like our YouTube channel at Y4C TV so you can keep up with all of these courageous, dope conversations and help us build our Instagram page at Bro Code Show. So always appreciate the brothers for another dope night. Thank you to our guests for coming through, and we always appreciate our supporters. Well, we always close the show with some positive, and tonight's no different. And tonight's quote reads, "Respect your body when it's asking for a break. Respect your mind when it's seeking rest. Honor yourself when you need a moment." It's your boy, Bro Troy, aka Mr. Y4C, but better known as Coach TJ, and we are the Bro Code.